Hello everyone, Kevin here, NTU graduate and social entrepreneur, and I'm glad to be hosting this series, Building Skills, Paving Pathways, a series brought to you by NTU's Career and Attachment Office, which features notable alumni sharing their journeys and specific skills they built in their career progress. On the first episode, to talk about the skills of interdisciplinary thinking and global perspectives, we have the co-founder of the widely popular digital media and financial education platform, the Woke Salaryman. We have Goh Wei Choon.
Hey, hi, thank you.
No.
I didn't know this is the first episode.
Yeah,
Oh, so cool. So honored.
This episode. Because I think you have kind of really built a strong brand. But I would say that, even for me personally, I've actually followed the Woke Salaryman since it was, I think, under 30k followers.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
you're OG fan.
In a way. When you first started up,
Right.
and I was just kind of becoming an adult. So finance numbers are not really my thing.
Yeah.
But when I kind of saw the way it's integrated with comics, with visuals, it just became very palatable and also very interesting to me.
You're a comms graduate, right?
I am a comms graduate.
Right. I see.
Okay, great. So I think before we go into specific skills, I think many viewers, listeners want to know about, I guess, your journey, from as NTU, in NTU and eventually starting the Woke Salaryman. Brief experience in NTU, like what was your focus as a student? How was your experience here?
Well, when I got in, I was so amped up to start and my goal actually was I wanted to become, this is such a stupid thing. I wanted to become the greatest living animator to ever live. I want to become the greatest animator.
That is huge though.
It's huge.
That?
I genuinely wanted to do that. Then I realized how damn difficult it is, and I sort of do believe in talent, the idea of talent that people are naturally good at something. And I think to be that level of great, you need some talent. You need talent mixed with luck, and then also capability and ability to learn and adapt and things like that.
Okay.
But that's a silly goal anyway. I think it's an interesting one to set for, but I think it's way too broad. And if you define success like that, you are setting yourself up to be disappointed next time. Because what is that even? How do you even define it? Not even can reach or not. What is the greatest? Greatest defined by what? The amount of Academy Awards? The amount of people that watch your things? Whether you'll be remembered after you die?
Sure.
So that is just way too loosely. But when you're young, I didn't have the tools and the mentors to tell me how to properly do it. And what I should have done, and what I tell people who ask me about these things nowadays is your goals are set it to something realistic but also lofty. Or you can have two goals. One dream one and then one that you will give yourself a little pat on the back whenever you get it.
What's the value of that, you feel?
To spur you on and to really believe in a very, very successful future you.
Sure.
Because really it can happen. I've seen it happen with my peers and stuff.
Okay.
But then also to have something that is achievable, that you can see yourself going in 3 to 5 years or even the next year. To say I'm going to complete one film. I'm going to complete one 8-page comic strip.
Sure.
Something like that you can pat yourself on the back, because these little steps are necessary, because it's very hard to climb and fly and just shoot yourself to the top of the stairs, but you break your goals down into little steps, then you can climb step at a time.
May I just add something small? I think Jay Shetty was the one that mentioned before building a big dream, you can kind of build a small one first.
Right.
And then you get feedback from the market, you get feedback from yourself, whether you enjoy doing it or not.
Right.
That is kind of feedback whether you can build further.
Right.
And I guess we explore that with TWS because I'm presuming that you all didn't imagine it to be this big, right? So it's that small steps, and then along the way it grew. So we'll explore that a bit later. But going back again, I guess going back to NTU, did school prepare you for the workforce?
I think ADM preps you extremely well to have a life of art, but to get a job immediately after. Maybe not as well as some of the other schools, but I think overall and in the long term, that's a better thing. Because I feel like there's a chasm after you graduate, because ADM gives you the space to explore yourself as an artist, and also ADM will prompt you to think about animation or art or whatever your chosen field is. At least this is my experience, in a more analytical / scholarly way. And there are merits to that, and I've learned a lot about that. I'm able to break down and also appreciate just as a fan of art, like art on another level that I think a more vocational or technical education might not have prepped me for. But certainly compared to my peers from other schools, I felt like I wish ADM forced me to do a few things for animation, which is like, I wish they forced me to go and prepare a portfolio in this area. But then also thinking back about it now, if they had done that, then my education in writing film essays or thinking about the themes of a certain animated film or exploring the alternative indie films from, I don't know, Croatia or these other European countries might be not there because you have to allot the resources somewhere.
Right?
It's a trade-off. So on the whole, I completely would not refund that at all. But I would say if it is still like what it was when I graduated, right, that ADM grads should prepare to be a little bit more like open-minded when they first look for jobs. Not say like don't think about having a job in the industry.
I think we were discussing offline about how you have an identity as an artist and also an identity as a worker, as how you had to marry the both. But you need skills in that area to get yourself a job, practical skills, which we're going to talk about. And I think even if you're not an NTU, ADM student, I think that principle applies as well.
Absolutely, The idea that your degree is going to be what you're doing next time, or if I do engineering, I'm going to be engineer. I'm going to do journalism, I'm going to be journalist. That's completely not the case. I've seen so many examples in the workforce of people that are my age, people younger than me, people older than me. I just recently spoke to someone who used to be a systems engineer, satellite engineer, for like a news outlet, and then they, in a meeting, somehow pitched a lot of ideas for stories, and then the boss said, hey, actually, you're pretty good as a journalist. And they became a journalist. And then later became spokesperson, and then later became like start company. Like it's just all over the place, one. Sure. And my journey has been like that. I thought it was always going to be like, I'm going to set my sights straight for that Mount Olympus or whatever of my of animation. But it has went all over the place.
And I guess it helps to be open to that possibility and open-minded with regards to that.
In fact, expect it. Right. And don't be so like committed to your identity as this or that, especially with artists, I think. But I also think with other people who say, wow, do com science, must do com science. Do engineering, must do engineering. No lah. It's all over the place, man. And you gotta also look at what the world around you is reacting to. And sometimes you might not find that it's as interesting as you think it is. Then you change and it's okay. Or sometimes you find that you're actually better at another thing. And then you change it's okay also.
Okay. Let's talk about after school. So you graduated with that kind of mentality, and then you went to work in Mothership for a while. Was it the first work you got?
So my first job was actually before uni, that web design job. I got paid like 1.6K. And the negotiation process was really stupid because I didn't even look up money and stuff. So like, sometimes I also imposter syndrome when I do Woke Salaryman because I'm like, who am I to? I make so many stupid mistakes. I know veering off a bit, but I think quite interesting. Like so, when I went to negotiate for the salary, I didn't even look up what the industry rates were. I was so stupid. I just went in and the manager said, I like your portfolio, so how much would you like to be paid? And I didn't even know that he would ask me that question. I just blurted out 800 and he laughed. Wow. And he said, actually, for your poly kind of thing, we start at 1.5. Then they gave me 1.6. So I was like, wow, fails, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was really bad. So when I first came out, actually I did masters in NTU also. When I graduated the undergrad in ADM, I stayed on actually for the first batch of master students in ADM. So I had a master's of Arts, animation from there. And while I was there, I did some freelance work for Mothership. Mothership is this Singapore-based news media website. And they liked what I did. And I did an animated thing about haze. You know the time when haze was coming in from Indonesia. So I did this animated thing for them where the haze came in as a monster. So they liked that and they wanted to hire me. So I was sort of headhunted. But my co-founder, Ruiming, actually was the one my co-founder in TWS, or the Woke Salaryman Ruiming, was already working in there. So actually he was the one who got me the lobang or got me the in with Mothership. Yeah, I
think that, I was going to ask how that shaped your, how the skills developed that helped in
actually, so I was hired to do like illustration, animation, but gradually also I shifted my role a little bit to doing more video work, and eventually I also started doing more sponsored content work with them, and I learned a lot about the business end of things, how you monetize content, and that helped so much when it came to designing the first framework of the Woke Salaryman, and then the second framework of the Woke Salaryman, and now the third framework of the Woke Salaryman. So the idea of like interdisciplinary skills is so potent, and it's not even a skill that I had. Like videography was not a skill that I had. I just know how to use the DSLR. I know about f-stop, aperture, all this, ISO, all this stuff, shutter speed. And I applied that to videography. Then I just go online, YouTube, and then learn some, because there was nobody at Mothership at the time that taught me this stuff. So I learned it all myself, and I was just trying basically to solve a business problem. And in learning to solve the business problem, the interdisciplinary crossover just comes.
Yeah. Since you mentioned about it, I guess let's talk about it a little bit before going to TWS. Interdisciplinary thinking, right? It is one of the skills we are focusing on today. It is an intellectual skill. How do you define it as?
I define it as a general attitude and philosophy of curiosity and willingness to do extra. And this is something that I choose to be as a person. In fact, to the point where sometimes I got to pull it back, and I'll explain more about that aspect later. But I've always been somebody who tries to solve everything myself. Okay. If I'm stuck with anything, I just Google it. If I need to crack a software, and this is illegal, but last time I young, no money. When I wanted to find software, I'll go and find out how to get it from all means. It's like hustling on that problem-solving scale. And I always sometimes felt like, am I shortchanging myself? Am I letting myself be exploited? And sometimes I would, because I would do extra stuff because I was interested in solving the problem. And then some of my colleagues and managers, who are right also to say this, they'll say like, hey, why are you doing extra work? This is not your job, This is not your JD. Why would you go out of your way for no extra pay to do it? One of the sayings that I like, I forgot who said this, might be Confucius or some other person. It's something like, he who cuts the wood warms himself twice. So in me cutting that firewood and then burning it for other people, and then we all enjoy it, I warm myself twice. Okay. So I always feel like I always get something when I try to solve a problem. I always learn something new. Okay. And I'm always willing to do extra stuff for no payment, because my payment is that I learn something new. But you see, that's a problem now when I'm crossing over to become...
It's contextual, I guess.
And also like hard skills and technical stuff can carry you very far, but I feel like sometimes to get to the next level of management or to run the company now that I'm doing, I have to delegate, And it's so difficult for me to delegate.
Because you have to let go of that.
I know. and sometimes for me to solve it myself, right, it'll take 1 hour for me to just solve it myself. But for me to actually spend the next 3-4 hours to teach somebody else how I'm thinking and how I might do it, right, might save me even more next time, because I can just pass it to them. And that is in my head, but I just find it, this is my next boss battle. Like, I need to learn to delegate and trust people.
In a way that, even though, like you said, now you have to move and transition, having those skills and knowing, like, for example, how to operate a camera helps you to coach someone else. At least
definitely.
You know.
And also, if I source people to do work for me, I can tell whether the rates are fair, whether they're good or not.
Going back to more maybe focus on this interdisciplinary thing. As a student, maybe not necessarily an art student, but in general, how can you develop that interdisciplinary thinking?
I think the idea of starting a project helps a lot, and this is something I wish I did a lot more when I was a student at NTU. So when you start something, right, and not just something for fun, you have to have real stakes, and this is what I tell a lot of like younger people to do, because it gives you a portfolio when you start something that is really like say you build an app to help old people in your community find services for stuff that they might need help with, and I don't know, something like that. When you do that, you are testing your skills against the real world and applying it to something real, and you really understand how externalities can affect your own skills, and then you fill it with problems. Like if you have a problem you don't know how to solve, you either go and find someone who can help you with it, or you learn how to do it yourself.
And by nature, you're going to be exposed to different disciplines.
So that problem real world problems will really push you to really go and understand how to solve something. And then that, like you say, then becomes interdisciplinary thinking. I think that's the best way to do it. And that's the best outcome you can have, possible outcome if you do successfully do it. Because you have a real thing now that you can show people. And that is so much more useful and helps you stand out so much more from just your qualifications or your first-class honors or whatever.
I guess now we can talk about Woke Salaryman before transitioning to global perspectives, which, again, probably you need, because Woke Salaryman has now expanded to, it had reached in different countries already. But going back, now you have 30,000+ on Telegram, I think nearly 300K on Instagram, and of course no, it's not even and of course on the website, thousands of views probably every day. Do you imagine that you would reach this when you first started out?
Sort of, but our business model was different. The framework of profitability for Woke Salaryman phase 1 was that we just wanted to create a page on Facebook talking about something either boring or difficult to talk about and to create an organic following. Sure. Then from there, we were thinking like 20 to 50K on Facebook. From there, what we will do is we will sell workshops to corporate clients. Like for example, I don't know, like airline want to learn how to make an organic page where there's content. Then we either be consultants or agency at the last resort, or we can do a 3-hour workshop.
Sure.
Then we just show you how we did it. Then you can learn from it for internal team. I just thought that was a great way to earn money because like I used the same deck of slides.
Yeah.
I charge a few $1,000s every session. Like, oh, bank, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't turn out that way because as our page grew, right, it went bonkers. Like I remember our first comic that we did got like 6K shares on Facebook in a couple of weeks, which was insane. We have a rough knowledge of like what is an average like decent baseline to expect for Singaporean content. So that just blew our minds. And we realized that this was something, not say bigger, but perhaps another business model would be more suitable. That's why we're doing sponsored content now. And there will be something else down the line. This one cannot last forever, so we are very aware.
Is there any interesting messages or heartwarming messages you received from people that you can recall and remember?
A lot. Like, so when people tell us that they were born into a very difficult position, like they inherit debt, which is one of the worst things you can have because it's not even, you didn't even gain anything from it. It was not yours to choose, right? And they told us that our content had really helped. There's somebody that messaged us that told us that they had lost a huge amount of their money gambling and that our content gives them the hope and the kind of the rough direction to be able to pick things up and start again. And I think that's very important. Like we might not be able to lead their hand the whole way back to the road on recovery, but at least just pointing somebody in the right direction, I think can be so much, be of so much utility to somebody, you know. And it really heartens me when we hear stuff.
What is some of the hardest lessons you have to learn while growing a company or being an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest one actually is that growth is not compulsory. Because like the idea of growth companies have been in the fall for so long now. I mean, not now because now they plummet because of the interest rates and all that. But for the better part of the past like 5 to 10 years, the world has been dominated by the rise of growth companies. So growth companies are companies like Grab, Amazon, that kind that leverage heavily, and they forego immediate profits to grow first. So they reinvest everything to grow. And this seems like the model for startups, and we very much sort of didn't go down that line because we were not comfortable with it. We very much like the fact that we are sort of a boutique kind of a studio and we don't post every day. We are not a very big team, even though we have thought about growing it to that capacity. It might make us more money because we can have more margins or we can expand overseas, but I feel like that would lose a little bit of the something that we have as sort of micro influencers, because we do put ourselves out there, me and my co-founder, as heads of this thing. And we have a lot of blind spots as well, but we admit those blind spots whenever we can. For example, we are 2 Chinese men. I mean, we just say it, and we also try to accommodate for other viewpoints, but also the fact that we own it and we just come out and say it and keep it small allows us to have this edge and maneuver quickly. Perhaps we forego some profits and stuff, but I just always had this in the back of my mind. I still have it now. Like, am I just not embracing the fact that I need to grow? Should I just have taken this investor money and grow our thing to 500, 100 people? I feel like this is the right thing to do, but I don't know also in 20 years whether I regret. But for now, I'm happy. I'm very happy.
It's just a curious question, because won't you ever be concerned about your compromise other aspects of life as a full-blown like startup founder? Like, you won't have time for anything else, especially if you build a 100-man company. Or you feel like that can be.
No, I think you're right. Like, so I also don't need money to that level. There's really no impetus for me to do that if the product is not something I like. I like that our product is a bit like we make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes got typo. Then we talk to people one-on-one.
Sure.
But you're right. I think like what a lot of people overlook is that these founders that we worship or we glorify, they lead very, very chaotic and busy lives. I think it's Jordan Peterson that said something like you could see it as sort of mental illness almost, where they are so obsessed that they don't have regular lives.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk sleep at the office for damn near every day, like for a long time before like he managed to reach that level of success at Tesla. So am I willing to give that up? I actually know that I like cycling in the evenings. I like going home and then there's still sunlight out. I like that a lot. Like one of the biggest flexes I thought Riming, my co-founder, said that I thought was hilarious was there was a comment that annoyed him that was like saying something bad about us. And he thought about it for a while and he said, screw it, I'm just going to go cycle. I'm going to go cycle twice today. And he went mountain biking twice in one day. Because that's the ability, the flexibility that he has chosen to have.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's not like he work very little. Sometimes he'll work a lot, but when he want to chill, he can chill because he's a business owner and he has chosen to lead that life. And I think there's something nice about that also. Yeah.
Okay. Just to close this segment is that, you know, we need to be cognizant of our own outcomes and not just take something and apply directly to you and worship something for the sake of it. And in a way, that's also what TWS is about. You'll put in a lot of disclaimers and you'll make sure to share that this content is, you know, our perspective.
Yeah, and we can be wrong. We can be wrong. We have been wrong. Yeah.
Right. We pivoted because we talked initially about how you have a global audience. So how has that shaped a global perspective?
So actually the global perspective for me did not come so much from TWS and its exposure to global audiences. Where I learned that was after Mothership, I actually left Mothership for a company called Dornier MedTech. Dornier MedTech, if you look up the term Dornier, it started by this man called Claude Dornier. And basically, they were known for building warplanes for the Nazis in World War II. So I was watching some documentary about World War II, like World War II Colored or whatever. And then it's like, it's talking about Dornier planes. Like, hey, this is my company.
Sure.
Long story short is that was a global company. And in my role as a marketing person there, later marketing manager there, I had to travel to all these different places, work with all these different people and learn about different ways of working. How the Japanese have their own style, the Chinese have their own style, the Americans have their own style. And that you can't shoehorn everything within a big organization. And also that global perspective led me to understand what Singapore is like and Singapore's true fragility in this very global world. And I think a lot of Singaporeans or young Singaporeans lack that perspective, but it is so vital because Singapore is not self-sufficient and doesn't exist in a vacuum. For Singapore, a pretty prosperous country to be situated in a region where it's surrounded by other developing countries. What is that? What does that mean? What is that like? What does that mean for you? And my learning lesson on here also was related to animation. Because when I graduated, I was very disillusioned and very like, disheartened by what the animation scene looked like when I first graduated. Because honestly, the salary compared to some of the other graduates, if you look at all the uni pay, they sometimes release time to time. So NTU, SMU, NUS, right? All the uni pay from the different schools, right? The lowest one is ADM. Or at least the last time I checked, lower one was ADM. Sure. All those, comm science right now, huge, right? Engineering still to some degree. Then you get, everything is, the rest is all 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. ADM is like, I think either 2.8 or 3. The lowest one. And animation specifically, not just art, right? Is extremely expensive because it's very labor intensive. And Singapore is uniquely bad for labor because cost of living is high, land is scarce, and you cannot have so many people. So competition for animation, especially when work is becoming remote because of COVID, right, is extremely bleak. And the reality is that a lot of animation work is going to be outsourced overseas. Right.
So having that awareness helps you not be disillusioned.
Yeah, how do you... So as a fresh grad, you have to understand, not say it's all lost, but you have to think of other things rather than just... It's not like you good, you can get a job, you're okay. Because somebody as good as you in Philippines or Indonesia can charge 1/3 the price for exactly the same work. So how are you going to fight with that? And there are ways to do it, and we can talk about that if there's time, but probably not.
But the mindset
is not... it's not a lost cause, but you must know the threats that are facing you outside because Singapore is not self-sufficient like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that's a very strong link also to those listening, that having a global perspective helps you prepare yourself potentially for the workforce and also learn how to work with people with different viewpoints, perspectives, cultures, which we take for granted sometimes because we exist in a vacuum growing up. Okay, wow, I think we had a good discussion. We're coming towards the end. But before that, we'll just do a quick fire. 5 quick fire questions. Okay, linked to students and life lah. Okay. First one, what's the biggest value or lesson you gained from university?
No, cannot quick fire. I too slow already.
No worries. Can be a bit longer. You can elaborate on answer.
Grades don't matter. It's like that, right? You want it fast, right?
Yeah, but you
So
can
I'm very
elaborate
slow,
a bit. You can elaborate a bit.
Grades don't matter lah. Like I think I was quite obsessed with it for a while, but then going outside, I realized I spent a lot of time and effort worrying about something that is not that important. But at least for my industry. So this is very general stuff. I don't know if it's applied for everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the biggest failure, inverted commas, in your working career?
I think biggest failure is oh no, I'm gonna sound very cocky because I can't think of any failure right now. I think biggest failure is not being able to delegate well enough, fast enough. Took me a long time to learn it. I'm still learning it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was gonna ask, how do you overcome it? How are you overcoming it?
I overcame it because my founder got annoyed at my output because everything come through me very slow. So I also feel like I need to also address some of the business concerns. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. What is the most blunt but useful advice you've got?
Oh, I would say actually is that person telling you that the NYP when I got rejected to go into that direct admission scheme, they told me like my drawing is just not good. Because drawing is a very technical thing. So it made me reckon with the idea that whatever it is, technical as far as you can say is not important, but you also need a certain baseline amount of technicality and objective skill to get in the door sometimes. Yeah.
What is one quote or philosophy that you live by that inspires you?
I think actually recently I'm on this thing from this is researcher / storyteller. I think what she described herself as. It's called Brene Brown.
Oh yeah.
And she talked about the idea that you cannot numb selectively because I'm somebody who I'm very stoic and I don't respond to things. But that's because I always try to numb myself from painful things that can happen. But when you do that, you numb everything else also. So you numb your ability to be joyful. You numb your ability to share happy things with other people, and sometimes you can hurt people as a result of that. And I think I've hurt the people around me because I'm not able to show like real emotion because I'm just scared of getting hurt.
Last question. What is one final message or advice you have for NTU or any uni students?
Oh, a very practical one is to try to do something while you're in uni that has real world application. Whether it's an internship thing or a side project that you start by yourself, because that is the best thing that you can do to learn a lot of interdisciplinary things. And also, it's an amazing portfolio to have something. People always ask how to stand out. Do a project. Do something outside. Okay. And you will stand out. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wei Choon, for this
My pleasure,
hour
man.
You spent with us. I learned so much from you. I'm sure the audience will feel the same way. I guess with that, we've come to the end of our first ever episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Put in the comments something that you learned. Reach out to NTU CAO office as well. If you want more career advice, you want more perspectives, definitely reach out to them. They're there to help you. This is brought to you by them, this podcast series. So subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.